Have you ever stood in a place that feels like it was never meant to be remembered? Like the world itself forgot to finish building it. Gerald didn't believe in that kind of feeling. Not until he was sent to Gravesend Hollow, a cemetery in rural Pennsylvania, listed on no public maps, and missing from every federal land registry Gerald could find. Still, there it was. A private contractor job. Night maintenance. No questions asked. They told him something simple. Don't stay after 10. And don't go near Section D. The drive there already felt wrong. No traffic signs after a certain point. No houses. Just long American highway lines dissolving into fog and trees. And then, the gate appeared. Not a grand cemetery entrance. Just rusted iron. Half sunk into uneven ground. Like the land had slowly been swallowing it for years. Gerald stepped out of his truck. The air changed instantly. Not colder. Just quieter. Even insects didn't sound right here. No crickets. No wind or trees. Only a faint pressure in his ears. Like the land was listening instead of existing. He checked his flashlight. Then the clipboard. Standard instructions. Maintenance rounds. Soil leveling. Headstone checks. Nothing about what he was already feeling. That something here was aware he had arrived. The cemetery stretched further than it should have. Rows of stones disappearing into fog like they never ended properly. And yet, there was no sense of depth. No horizon. Just repetition. Gerald started walking. Gravel under his boots sounded too soft. Like it was being absorbed instead of stepped on. Every few seconds, he paused. Not because of fear yet, but because he kept hearing something subtle. A sound beneath the ground. Not movement. More like breathing. He stopped near the first row. Shined his light across the headstones. Names. Dates. Standard American markings. Nothing unusual. Until he noticed one grave slightly off alignment. The soil wasn't settled. It looked disturbed. Fresh. Gerald frowned. Checked his sheet. No recent burials listed. None. He stepped closer. The ground was soft under his boot. Too soft. Like something had been pressing upward from below. And stopped just before breaking through. He crouched. Ran his fingers over the soil. It was warm. Not ambient warm. Warm like something alive had exhaled into it. A sound came again. Closer this time. A soft, slow tap, tap, tap. Like something inside was testing the surface. Not trying to escape. Trying to respond. Gerald stood up quickly. Shined the flashlight directly at the grave. Nothing moved. But the soil. It had shifted. Just slightly. Closer to the surface than before. Like it had leaned toward him. He stepped back. Heart rate rising now. Still rationalizing. Animals. Underground pressure. Construction instability. Anything but what it felt like. Then he noticed the name on the headstone. Faded. Almost erased. But not fully gone. And for a brief second, it looked like it had changed. Not carved differently, but rewritten. Gerald blinked hard. Shook his head. Tired eyes. Long drive. Stress. soil sank. Just slightly. Not collapsing. Not falling. Exhaling. Like something beneath had just realized it was being watched. And then, a whisper. Not from the wind. Not from behind him. From directly under his feet. Soft. Close. Personal. You're late again. Gerald froze. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. The flashlight trembled slightly in his hand. The ground beneath the grave shifted once more. Slowly. Deliberately. As if it had just decided it now knew his presence completely. And Gerald understood something he couldn't explain yet. This wasn't a place that held the dead. This was a place that noticed the living. He took one step back, then another, never breaking eye contact with the soil. And just before he turned away completely, the grave made one final movement. Not upward, not downward, but inward, like it was inhaling him into memory. Gerald didn't sleep that night. Not properly. Because sleep would mean accepting that what he heard was real. Morning came too fast. Gray sky over rural Pennsylvania. The same gate. The same cemetery. Except now, it felt different. Like it had remembered him overnight. Gerald stepped out of his truck again. The air was heavier. Not physically. Mentally. Like the place had added weight to his thoughts while he was gone. He checked his phone. No signal. No GPS. No record of exact coordinates anymore. Just a blank map pen labeled unavailable location. That should have been enough to leave. But he didn't. Because something inside him was already trying to understand it. He walked back to the grave. The one from last night. The disturbed one. And stopped. It looked worse. The soil wasn't just unsettled now. It had shaped itself slightly upward. Like something beneath had been pressing up. Trying to remember the surface. Gerald swallowed hard. Shined his flashlight even though it was daytime. Habit more than need. The headstone had changed. Not dramatically. Not enough for most people to notice. But Gerald noticed everything now. The name had shifted slightly. Letters rearranged. Like it was correcting itself. He leaned closer. And the air around it felt wrong. Too still. Too attentive. Then, his radio crackled. Even though it had been off. A burst of static. Followed by a voice. Low. Distorted. Almost patient. You checked it again. Gerald dropped the radio immediately. Stepped back. Heart rate spiking. No explanation. No signal source. Just that voice sitting in the air like it belonged there. He forced himself to breathe slower. In. Out. Rational thoughts. Equipment malfunction. Interference. Old wiring. Anything. Then he saw something near the grave edge. A folded piece of paper. Half buried in soil. He hesitated before picking it up. It wasn't new. It was old. Weathered. But clean in a way that didn't match the environment. Like it had been preserved deliberately. He unfolded it. Inside was a burial record. Handwritten. Not official. Not modern. And at the top, a name. Gerald Matthews. He stared at it. wasn't just the name, it was the date. It matched today. Gerald stepped back instinctively, the paper trembling in his hands. He checked again, then again. Behind him, the soil made a sound. Not movement, not collapse. A turning, like something shifting its attention toward him fully. Then another whisper, clearer this time. Not from below anymore, from everywhere at once. You're not the first, Gerald. His breath stopped. The grave wasn't just reacting anymore. It was responding in sentences. He turned slowly. The cemetery looked the same, but it didn't feel the same, because now he could sense it. The repetition, the pattern, the subtle wrongness in how everything aligned. Headstones weren't just placed, they were arranged, like data points, like memory slots. Gerald walked further down the row, against his better judgment, and noticed something worse. Some graves had no names, just blank stone. But when he looked away, he swore the blanks looked slightly filled, like names existed only when he wasn't observing them directly. His breathing grew shallow, his mind trying to escape conclusions it was already forming. Then he saw Section D, fenced off, weathered warning sign, but the fence wasn't blocking anything physical. It was blocking continuation. Like everything past it didn't belong in the same version of reality. And beyond it, the ground looked newer. Too new. Like it had been reset. Gerald approached slowly, against every instinct. At the moment he crossed the sign's shadow, the air changed again. Not quieter, not colder. Worse, more aware. A second voice joined the first. Not speaking, but remembering him speaking. You came back faster this time. Gerald froze, because he hadn't said anything. Not out loud. The grave wasn't just listening now. It was replaying him. And then he noticed something buried just beyond Section D. A half-open grave. Fresh. Still breathing. And on the edge of the soil was a reflection. Not of him standing, but of him already inside it. Gerald didn't remember stepping past Section D. Only the moment he realized he already had. The fence was gone. Not broken. Not opened. Just absent. Like it had never been part of the world in the first place. The ground beyond it felt different under his boots. Too even. Too intentional. Like the earth had been leveled for something that was supposed to repeat. Gerald looked back. The cemetery behind him was still there, but it didn't connect properly anymore. The angles were wrong. Distances didn't match what his eyes remembered. And then, the first headstone shifted. Just slightly. He froze. Watched it. It turned. Not falling. Not tilting. Rotating. Like it was trying to face him directly. Then another one moved. Then another. Not all at once. Not randomly. In sequence. Like a system waking up. Gerald stepped backward instinctively. But the ground behind him was no longer where he thought it was. He turned in a slow circle. Every direction now looked like cemetery. But none of it looked like the same cemetery. The layout had changed. Not dramatically, but enough to erase certainty. Paths that were straight before now curved. parallel now intersected. He whispered to himself, "No, no, this isn't geometry." Then he noticed something worse. The graves were rearranging based on him. Every time he turned his head, something had shifted behind him, like the space only stabilized when it was being observed. A low sound came from beneath the ground. Not knocking anymore. Not breathing. Something more deliberate. Like speech forming before language existed. Gerald backed toward what he thought was the exit. But the path extended. Just slightly. Every time he moved forward, it moved away. Then he saw it. A grave open again. But not the same one. A new one. Fresh soil. Steam rising from it like something had just stopped thinking. He approached slowly, against everything in him, and looked inside. No body. No coffin. Just soil layered in distinct shapes. Like impressions. Like people who had been pressed into memory rather than buried. And then, the soil shifted, not collapsing, rearranging. A shape formed, a shoulder, a hand, a face, not rising, just being remembered upward. Gerald stumbled back, heart pounding now, fully past rational explanation. The grave spoke again. But not as a voice this time, as his own internal sound, perfectly imitated. You keep checking, but you never stop participating. Gerald froze, because the sentence didn't feel heard. It felt replayed from him. He turned away fast, and that's when he saw it. The cemetery behind him was no longer stable. It was looping. Rows folding into themselves. Paths repeating like they had no end point. Like the entire place was a structure that forgot how to conclude itself. And every grave he passed looked slightly more familiar than it should have. Then he saw something that stopped him completely. A headstone. His name again. But this one was not new. It looked older than anything else around it. Weathered, repeatedly engraved, layered, like it had been written over and over across time. Gerald stepped closer, his hands shaking now, and the date beneath the name was not a date of death. It was a cycle marker, repeated entries, different years, same outcome, same grave. Different version of him each time. Behind him, something exhaled. Slow. Patient. Recognizing him completely now. And then the ground beneath his feet softened. Not collapsing. Not sinking. Adjusting. Like it had been waiting for him to stand there again. Gerald looked down and realized something that made his chest tighten. The soil wasn't beneath him. It was already slightly above him. Gerald didn't run anymore. Not because he was calm, but because the concept of escape didn't feel real inside the cemetery now. Everything had flattened into repetition. The same trees. The same stones. The same silence that felt rehearsed, like the world had stopped generating new outcomes. And then he realized something worse. He wasn't walking through the cemetery anymore. He was walking through versions of it. Stacked, overlapping, replaying. Every step he took felt slightly familiar, like he had already taken it before, but forgotten the result. The grave with his name reappeared ahead. Not once, multiple times. each version slightly older, more worn, more certain. Gerald stopped, and for the first time, he didn't try to understand it. He just listened, and the cemetery finally spoke clearly, not in fragments, not in echoes, in complete thought. You keep thinking this place holds the dead, but it only holds what is remembered. Gerald swallowed hard, because the voice wasn't outside anymore. It was inside him, using his own cadence, his own hesitation. The ground beneath him shifted again, but this time, he didn't feel movement. He felt agreement, like the earth was responding to a conclusion already reached. Then he saw them. Figures, not rising, not appearing, just present, between the headstones, standing still, watching without faces, each one subtly shaped like him, but not the same version. Different outcomes, different cycles. Gerald stepped back slowly, and every version of him in the cemetery stepped with him, not mimicking, synchronizing. Then the voice returned, closer now, final, certain. You were never the visitor. You were always the record. Gerald shook his head slightly, but the motion felt delayed, like the world was buffering him. And then he understood. Gravesend Hollow was not a place. It was a system, a memory loop that kept testing what stayed consistent and what always returned. The grave with his name opened again, but this time, there was no soil moving upward. There was only stillness, waiting, patient, complete. A thought formed in his mind that didn't feel like his own. Not spoken, not forced, just accepted. If I am remembered here, I will stay here. And the cemetery responded instantly, not with sound, but with alignment. Everything locked into place. Perfect symmetry, perfect repetition. Gerald felt it then. Not pain, not fear, but placement. Like something had finally found where he belonged in the structure. The ground rose gently around his feet, not dragging him down, not pulling him in, just integrating him, like a name being added to a list that already existed. His vision blurred, and the last thing he saw clearly was the headstone with his name, now no longer weathered, no longer changing, just complete, finished, final. And the whisper that followed was almost gentle, almost familiar. Welcome back, Gerald.